I have owned the brand new Eufy Make UV printer for just about 2 months now, and I have learned a bunch of stuff about this printer. And I also want to share them with you. First things first, I have gotten a lot of questions about the rack that I actually have for my printer. If you are wanting this rack, it comes in multiple different colors. It is linked in the description of this video. But let's get into the brass tacks of why we're here today. First, there has been a ton of discussions about the ink and how much it costs. As I sit here right now, currently the only way to purchase the inks for the Eufy Make UV printer is through a full kit. In the kit, you're gonna get a cleaning cartridge. You're also gonna get a M, Y, C, these are your colors, a black, a gloss, and also a white cartridge. So you're gonna get a total of 7 different items within one ink kit. Each one of these right here is 100 milliliters. This cleaning cartridge is a total of 525 milliliters. Now the entire kit, the MSRP price for this is $299 for everything, all 7 things. $300 does sound like quite a bit of money, right? But let's break it down into the millimeter form. So in total for the whole 7 things that you are getting a little over 1,000 milliliters of ink and also cleaning solution. When you divide $300 into $1,000, you're looking at a cost of about 26 cents a milliliter. Now, eventually, individually, the inks will be for sale on the Eufy Make website. And at that point in time, what Eufy Make has said is that it will be about $42.99 for each individual ink. Each individual ink cartridge is 100 milliliters, so that would break down to about 43 cents per milliliter. Now, to me personally, that doesn't really sound all that expensive. And the only reason why I say that is I actually have a really large 24-inch printer, okay? And with that printer, the only colors that I have is C, M, Y, K, and then an additional matte black. So I have a total of 5 cartridges, and those 5 cartridges cost me $250 for all 5 of those inks. The amount of prints that I can get on my 24-inch printer is way smaller than what I can get with the amount of ink that I get with my Eufy Make UV printer ink cartridges. The per milliliters that I have figured out for my 24-inch printer, it cost me about $1.75 per milliliter. And again, I don't get as many prints as I do with the Eufy Make UV printer. So for someone like me who has really high-end printers, the ink, in my opinion, for this right here is way cheaper than my other inks that I need to buy for my other printers. That being said, I did do a little bit of research and found this pretty helpful guide on beginner laser or beginner UV printer users. Now, if you wanted to deep dive more into the website that I found, I do have it linked in the description of this video. But essentially what the website says is that if we base ink price per industry standard, the Eufy Make UV printer at 25 cents per milliliter is actually more expensive than all the other UV printers that are on the market. That being said, UV printers historically are very, very, very expensive. Like, I'm talking more expensive than like 3 Xtool P2Ss, okay? So this Eufy Make UV printer is actually way cheaper than my Xtool P2S. So to me, this is more of a budget-friendly UV printer. Yes, their ink is more expensive, but I have owned this printer for 2 months now, and I've only had to replace the entire CMYK cartridges, your actual color cartridges, once. I've only had to do 1 full set. There's another full set that's in here, and there's still a lot of ink left in those things. However, I have gone through 3 of these gloss cartridges and 6 of these white cartridges. The reason for that is because I have been printing a lot of 3D texture prints. If you do not want to go through a lot of these right here, then I would just limit on how many textured prints you do want to use or make, so you don't go through as much ink as what I've been doing for those types of prints. Now let's talk about the time that it takes to print all of these prints. There has been a lot of complaints about, oh my gosh, these things take so much time. First, I have never played with another UV printer. I've never owned one. I've never seen one in action, so I have nothing to compare it to. What I will say is, and I have demonstrated this in previous videos that I have posted here on my channel, is that when we do a standard print, just a CMYK plus white print, It prints a lot faster than the 3D texture prints. Yes, I have had prints that take 7 hours to print. I've also had prints that only take 5 minutes to print. It truly honestly depends on what print settings you print at. So let's talk about the 3D texture print and why it takes so long for things to print. Just think of the 3D texture printing as like a traditional 3D printer. It is not the same thing. It does not have the same material, but the technology of the two is essentially the same. And if you've done any type of research about a traditional 3D printer, the one biggest complaint for all of them is that it takes so long to get the print done. This right here was one of my very first coasters, okay? And it was my very first thickest 3D texture thing that you could possibly print. And it did take a long time. I don't really know how long, but it did take way longer than the other coasters. But you can see the layers of thickness here. This right here, this like opaque grayish white color, that's going to be the actual coaster. What we're looking at is that stark white that's right here in the coaster. This did not just like magically print thick and then put a layer of color on top. What it had to do is go back through and build those layers until you get the thickness of what you need. Then it prints the color on top. So just like with the 3D printer, when you have that, you know, that plastic stuff that comes out of the 3D printer, it goes like this and starts building the layers slowly up and up and up. The reason why it has to be slow is because it does take time for the paint or the plastic or the ink to cure, okay? So things that don't take me a long time are just standard flat prints that only take CMYK. Things that take a long time are going to be your 3D texture prints. If you don't want your prints to take a long time to print, then just don't do any 3D prints. Now I have heard, and I don't know if this is necessarily true or not, but I have heard that this printer is a lot slower than your standard, industry standard UV printer. But at the end of the day, I didn't have a UV printer before. I do now, and now can make really cool things. I really, truly, honestly don't even mind that it does take me some time to create really cool things, because at the end of the day, I get really cool things. So this machine, I essentially just set it and then forget it. So like when I wanted to do this cup, I just set it up, put it into my machine, press print, and then was able to do other things around my house or even leave. I didn't even have to stay here in my craft room and babysit it. So while it does take a little bit of time to make some prints, to me, I'm okay with it just because I actually get some really cool things that come out of it. Now to answer a very common question that I've been getting, and it is, have I ever had any messed up prints? And the answer is, absolutely. I totally have. It has been a learning experience with this right here, and it's mostly a user-based issue versus the actual printer messing up. There is one issue that did happen, and we will go over that here in a minute. That was because of the machine and not because of me, but let me show you some of the messed up prints that I've gotten, okay? So first, I have some really terrible stickers. You can see that I have a couple missing, and that's because they actually turned out semi-decent and I just cut them out. But these stickers right here are not good. They may look good to you, but I can tell you right now, they're not. It's really hard to see, but you're gonna be able to see this like weird paint dripping marks, and they're not as crisp as what they need to be. They're actually kind of like fuzzy, like maybe like they're out of focus. The reason why this happened is because I was using this mat right here. This mat looks a little used, but it's not really the mat that's the problem. It's this right here. I was creating a 3D print and I have a lot of this overspray, okay? And it's pretty thick, like thick. Do you see how thick that is? So the Eufy Make UV printer has a bunch of cameras inside the actual machine. So what happened is that, let's say that this was laying on my flatbed. I had my blank sticker paper on top of my flatbed, and it was going through the machine. When the machine goes through and uses the cameras to kind of dictate or make sure that they have a correct measurement of what is on my mat. This is really confusing. All right, let me better explain this. When you put this into your machine bed like this, you press the Snapshot button. When you do the snapshot button, what happens is the machine takes your entire piece through the machine and it reads essentially what is on your flatbed printer. And it adjusts its print settings to how thick your material is. The reason why I had messed up prints is because technically what ended up happening is that the machine thought my sticker page was this thick and not this thick. So this right here is a really thick white layered mess, okay? And so when I printed, it printed at this height and not at the lower height that it needed to be at. So to combat that, what I ended up doing was just switching out to a different, cleaner, brand new mat. This right here has been used, no issues. I was able to print a full sheet of stickers and didn't have any problems because I just switched out the mat. All right, so definitely a user error learning experience that I had. The other thing that is definitely a user error and not something that the machine did is I've had some alignment issues. Just like with the stained glass window video that I had posted, and you can see that things are not centered onto this right here. It's because I was going too fast. It's a common problem that I have. My husband always tells me that I need to slow down. Oftentimes I'm running instead of walking because I am just in a rush to get things finished. I'm so impatient. So the reason why I've had alignment issues is my fault, not the Eufy Make's fault, okay? So I have had terrible prints and terrible alignments, but that's an easily explainable one because I am just going too fast. That being said, when I slow down and do what I'm supposed to do, I have zero issues with my prints or alignments or and stuff like that. So again, that's a me issue. Now remember earlier I did say that there was one issue of where I had gotten a faulty print and it wasn't a my fault issue, it was the Eufy Make issue. Now I would like to note that this issue has been fixed, but I do want to let you know that this did happen. So Eufy Make obviously sent out a bunch of these printers to a whole bunch of crafters like myself to beta test them, all right? Within the beta testing group, we do have our very own Discord group where we can like message other beta testers or even the people over at Eufy Make if we have any suggestions on software updates or if we find any issues, yada, 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 you get the picture. So for a while at the very beginning, maybe it was like a week or two, what was happening is that these inks right here, when they ran out, what they were supposed to do was, while they're printing, they were supposed to send a notification to the software to let the user, myself, know that, hey, you're out of ink. But what ended up happening is that there was something faulty in the chips or something like that within the original ink cartridges that was not sending the error notice to your actual software, to the user, to remind them like, hey, you need to switch out the inks, okay? So I was unfortunately one of these users that did have some faulty inks. And when I printed this picture of my dog, you will see that like I am missing some gloss here. And that's because my gloss ran out and didn't print the rest of this print. Is this a terrible print the way that it sits? No. And to be honest with you, you probably can't even tell unless you're in like certain types of lights that I am missing gloss on mostly all of this right here. Now, obviously with the beta testers, myself included, we saw that there was this issue and we went on the Discord group and said, hey, like we have this issue, what's going on? Can this be fixed? Like what's up? They did realize that there was a faulty chip or something like that, like I said, in these ink cartridges. So what they did is they remanufactured the ink cartridges, sent them all out to the beta users like myself that also have the UV printer. And so far, no one's said that they've had any issues. I have not had any issues since I've gotten the new inks with the new chips in them. Now, another common question that I've been getting a lot is whether or not these things right here are food safe, dishwasher safe, and microwave safe. I would like to note here that we should probably be using our common sense, but also most people or even Eufy Make or crafters like myself, they will say for legality reasons that if this is not food safe, microwave safe, dishwasher safe. We just don't want to be held liable for anything that could possibly go wrong, maybe if there's a chance of it. So I'm going to essentially say the same, but what I will tell you is that I have done a little bit of research. Google is your best friend. At least it's mine. So all I did is just like when I looked at the, average cost of like running a UV printer or a traditional printer, what I did is I just went to Google and I just searched up like, is UV ink safe? Now through this research, one thing that I did read is that UV ink in the natural form, the liquid form, is actually really toxic, okay? But apparently, once it's cured, it's no longer toxic. The curing process is the UV light that makes it into a solid form like this. Is that actually true? I don't know. I am not a scientist. I don't have safety data sheets. I am just a crafter that just does a little bit of research and tries to use my best common sense. Now, for me personally, have I licked any of my items? I have not, and I don't plan on it because that's just weird. Have I put these in the dishwasher? I have, and they're turning out just fine. Should I? I don't know. Have I put these in the microwave? I have not, and that's because none of this stuff is actually microwave safe in the naked form, that I'm not trying to put anything that has a decoration on it within the microwave. One thing that I do and would like to note here is that if it's not food grade safe, no, I am not trying to lick my cup, okay? All of these that I have made generally have like a straw, like a cap and a straw out of it. This one, you can drink it just like a tumbler. But like, let's just say this right here, okay? We're gonna drink it like a tumbler. I'm not gonna drink it like on the thing because that's been a lot of people's concern. What happens if you do a full wrap and your lip gets stuck on it, okay? Well, let's just pretend that this has stuff in it and I'm gonna drink off of it, just like this. Where is my hand at? My hand is right here. What happens like if you eat some Cheetos and lick your fingers? Did I just hurt myself? I don't know, okay? Again, not a scientist, don't have safety data sheets, I'm just a crafter and I just like to use my common sense. My common sense tells me that once it's cured and not in this form, this should be okay. You're not gonna damage yourself. I'm sure there's thousands of other things that are hurting you and harming you within your home that maybe this is okay, but go with your gut. If your gut tells you you shouldn't be doing something, just don't do it. And if you should, then you should. That's it. Okay, so moving on to something that I haven't gotten a ton of questions about, but is something that I do want to address, and that is the laminator. Now, the laminator is not going to be for everyone, and that's just whether or not you're going to want to create stickers or not. One thing that I have been asked multiple times is do I actually need the laminator? I already have a laminator at home. Why do I need to purchase their laminator? I can tell you right now, I have no idea. I don't know why you would need this one versus a traditional one. I actually have both. I have a traditional laminator and I have the Eufy Make laminator, okay? The one thing that I can tell you is that this right here is like the plastic film that comes with the Eufy Make laminator. This right here is not like traditional lamination pouches. This is what my traditional lamination pouches look like. Kind of looks like this. They're milky, hazy, and they're like a thinner plastic, okay? This is different than this. This is like a thicker plastic. Have I tried to put this inside my good old rusty dusty laminator? I have not. I'm not trying to ruin my laminator. What I can tell you is I have no idea what this plastic film is, but this is required, essentially essential. I like what I just said there, to make the UV stickers. The reason for that is when we make our stickers, now this right here already has the plastic film over it, but when we make the UV stickers, what happens is you can watch the previous videos that I've done with making stickers with you, but essentially what you do is you put on this like white sheet, and when you have this white sheet, when you haven't used the plastic sheet, it's still really sticky. So when you get done printing, and you're gonna have like all this like white area stuff, it's still really sticky. So what essentially this is this is just going to pick up all the rest of the stick, and then it's gonna leave you with a beautiful sticker that you can put wherever. Can you do that with these things right here? I don't know, I haven't tried. I don't wanna ruin anything. That's just what it is. So do I know for a fact if you do or do not need the Eufy Make laminator? I don't. I can just tell you what I have and what I've been given, and I can just use my common sense with that one. Let's move on to some of the random things that I've learned while owning this printer. First and foremost, and I said this a long time ago when I first unboxed this thing, this mat right here that you're going to use, it also comes with like smaller mats for the smaller flatbeds, but these right here is what you need in order to actually like stick your items into the printer, okay? This right here is technically a consumable product, right? Obviously, when you do thicker prints like this, you could just bend your mats and get rid of all this extra stuff. It's just popping right off, okay? The other thing too that is this right here is essentially just a Cricut mat. I'm a Cricut crafter from the very beginning. And one thing that I do know is that you can wash your Cricut mats. So every once in a while, if you use your mat, Eufy Make mat, your Cricut mat, it will tend to not be as sticky as what it once was. If you wanted to be cool and wash your mats, I am not one of those persons, but if you wanted to and you wanted to clean these, all you need is a little bit of Austin spray and like a hard bristle brush, and you can just like wash this and it will be sticky again. Trust me, I know. I've been a Cricut crafter for like 14 years. They wash fine. However, if you don't want to annoy yourself with washing things, because I already have to clean my house, I'm not trying to clean an additional product, I just have this one particular spray that I have been buying for years and years and years. Pick yourself up some, trust me. If you don't believe me, I actually have videos on how to clean your Cricut mats or how to restick your Cricut mats. You're gonna wanna watch it because it is extremely helpful. So if you get this printer and you don't wanna keep buying these mats, just restick your mats. You will save yourself a bunch of time. And no, I never wash my Cricut mats, so I won't be washing these either. Also, the overspray that you see all over this used mat, look, there are ways to combat that. I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but I do know them now. First, a lot of the beta users within our Discord group, what they are doing to combat the overspray is using like painter's tape, and they're putting painter's tape down onto their mats, and then they're printing, and then they're like pulling the painter's tape up. You can do that if you wanted. However, when I did a Mona Lisa paint, I just set down you can kind of see that there's like a little bit of overspray, but what I did was I just set down a plain sheet of printer paper on top of this, and then set my canvas on top, printed my Mona Lisa print, and then there was a little bit of overspray, and I just like peeled the plain sheet of printer paper up and didn't have any issues. Clearly, I just have a little bit. It's not too bad. So you could do things like that. You can do painter's tape. You can do regular plain paper. That's what I did. And that just helps keep your mat from not getting as dirty as fast. Now, one thing that I can tell you about this type of printer, but this essentially goes to like crafting in general, whether you're a Cricut crafter or a laser crafter or anything else like that, prepping your materials is key. Okay. Just like if we were to place a decal on top of this cup, using vinyl that you would cut off your Cricut, you don't just want to take this cup right out of the packaging and slap a decal on it. What you want to do is make sure and rub this down with alcohol. Make sure your hands don't touch it so the oils in your skin make a bad adherence, and then you want to lay your decal. Same thing goes with using the Eufy Make UV printer with this right here. This I printed. It's like super cute. I love it. And I cannot get anything to come up off of this glass. The print, I am dragging my finger over the top of it and nothing's coming off. The reason for that is because I prepped my item the way I should. I took this out of the packaging. I used some rubbing alcohol, rubbed it real good, making sure that there was no dust on there. Then when I loaded it up into my UV printer rotary attachment, I made sure and only hold the inside and laid it into my rotary and made sure I didn't touch anything on the outside. So this just makes sure that like the oils in my skin don't rub onto the glass, making it to where my paint is just going to slick right off and not adhere. Now, if you are printing on metal, you can print on metal with this printer, okay? But certain types of metal, like the shinier metals that have like a coating on them, the paint is not going to stick like they should. The reason for that is there's nothing for the paint to grab onto. There is some like metal fixture spray that you can spray onto your metal to where essentially coats the metal and creates like this gripping agent for your ink to hold on to. Now there are certain metals that are unfinished that have a little bit of a rough texture to them. You're not gonna have to do any prep work for that because the paint is gonna have something to grip onto. Now, when it comes to something like this, a canvas, I'm gonna show you a messed up print, and this is gonna go back to, have I ever had messed up prints? I have, and I didn't prep my material correctly, which is why I have a messed up print. So when you are printing on canvas, you have to make sure and prep your items. So you can see without a doubt that I am missing these like wooden pegs. What the wooden pegs are is this right here. You put these in there and it stretches the canvas out to where you're not gonna have any type of give to your item. The reason why this is so important is especially if you are doing a 3D print. What happens is you're gonna have a lot of weight to your item and your item is gonna start to bow and wave. What happens if you don't prep your item correctly is you get something that looks like this. Do you see this like weird texturing that's on here? And like everything is just, I don't like, it's just, this is terrible. And the reason why it's terrible is because of this right here. When I reprinted this, prepped it the way I should, and reprinted it, I got something that absolutely looks gorgeous and didn't have any issues. So prep is key when doing any type of work with this right here. But honestly, that goes for everything. Now, here are my final thoughts about this machine after I've owned it for 2 months, because that is one of the questions is like, now that you've had it for so long, what do you think of it? And I think that it's 100% a buy. If I didn't have this in my craft room right now, I would definitely be scooping up. One, it is affordable. It's definitely a lot cheaper than any of the lasers that I have here in my craft room. Two, the stuff that it can do by itself, like printing these right here without any issues, is definitely something that I've always dreamt of making. But I'm also a laser crafter. I have a ton of lasers here in my craft room, and I love now that I have the ability to make cooler items with my laser cutters now that I have a UV printer. The one thing that I have enjoyed recently is like just going to a store and imagining what I could make from the stuff that's being sold in the stores. Take, for example, this mug that I had seen over at the Hoblob. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. And then I went and like scratched it and stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I can make that with my UV printer. So I came home and I tried making it with this right here, and yep, didn't have any issues. That's been the coolest part, is that now I really don't have to buy anything. I can just make them. It probably was cheaper to buy it, but whatever. All right, y'all. I sure hope that I was really helpful in answering a lot of your questions about the new UV printer, because I know that it is a big purchase and that you do have a lot of questions because it is brand new. Now, if there are any other questions that you have about this printer, please let me know in the comments of this video, because I am always trying to help you make better decisions about your craft purchases. I'll see you on the next one.